Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Heartland Mamas. I'm Marie Briel.
And I'm Heidi Henry, coming to you from our socially distant studios at the edge of the Great Red Divide. The edge of the Great Red Divide is Illinois that looks all the way west to California, that giant red swath where the message of progressivism and the Democratic Party never is advanced. So Murray and I started this podcast to help bring that message across the way. And today, as part of that message, we're going to give you the Democratic progressive take on the last two nights of the RNC convention. You can find our previous work, including the coverage of our first night of the RNC convention and all of our coverage of the DNC convention at Heartland Mamas, MAMAS.com, on all podcast platforms, on YouTube, and proudly carried on the Demcast USA network. Marie, what would you like to talk about the last 2 days?
So, they were really, really weird. I think Tuesday night felt like an acid flashback. Overall, I have to say that the disconnect is the overreaching word for the tone of the convention thus far. You know, you have speakers who are
clearly glad
as I'm disconnecting with the words in my head.
They're clearly gaslighting, Murray.
It's not even the content disconnect. I mean, we all know it's gaslighting. We all know they're lying. We all know they're crap.
Lies, and lying liars that tell them. Okay.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And it's not even that. It's that the messages, the images, the speakers, the way they spoke were all contradictory to the language that was being used. It was really weird. Like the first night we had Kimberly Guilfoyle shouting happy things. And then on Tuesday night we had the Christian was out, and that was a big theme of Tuesday night, was school choice again, and holy war against Christians. You know, that's kind of a theme throughout this whole thing, I think, that you see. And then last night it was all of these people talking about the person that Donald Trump is, but no emotion to it. Like the reading of teleprompter with no emotion, like
Tiffany Trump.
The entire thing, you know, we talk about all this women, and the whole thing was subliminally designed to reinforce their idea of what a woman is. Even in the montages, they talked about peaceful, they talked about quiet, they talked about respectful, they talked about, when talking about the right to vote. And the two of them are so incredibly disjointed with what they're trying to say in the words and the way they're doing it. It's boggling.
He has had so little to do with the raising of Tiffany Trump, his youngest daughter, who he had with Marla Maples, who he had an affair with when he was married to Ariana. Is it Ariana? I don't know. Ivanka's mom. Iranka, or whatever her name was. And has had nothing to do with her upbringing once they divorced. And if you remember, as an infant, he was talking about would her breasts be big enough for him to interest him, right? Remember, that was his reference to his daughter Tiffany. And Tiffany's such a shallow little name. Anyway, she got up and delivered a speech that was right off the teleprompter, and I thought, she's describing a man she doesn't know, because that is not her father. But she doesn't know her father, so of course they're going to put words in her mouth. And I keep wondering, what did they promise her? A cabinet position? More money? What did they promise her? A share of the family businesses? Because of all of them, all of the five Trump children, her and Barron are the least likely to go to prison. So are they saying, look, when Ivanka, Eric, and John Jr. are in prison, you get to run the company? I'm not sure what they gave her to get her to speak in that manner, because she's been, I mean, she had to sign an NDA with her dad, at the time of the divorce, her mommy had to sign it for her when she was a minor, so she wouldn't discuss what a complete asshole he is and what a terrible father figure, a completely lacking individual he is. So I just kept looking at her, waiting for her to start blinking, help me, you know. So I was like, okay. Oh, and did you notice now? And I took some flack on my personal Facebook page for talking about how the women look, and there's what I call a Trump plastic look, and it's Trump plasticking or whatever. All the women look alike, and I tried to do my hair up like that, but I don't have own enough hairspray to get my hair to stay out like that, and or I don't own any false eyelashes. I've never even put them on. One of these days, I'm going to have to go. When we go back to a MAGA rally after COVID is over, and it will be MAGA, he's gone to jail rally, whatever. When I play cookie again to get into those things, I'm going to get some false eyelashes. I just can't wait. But they'll probably get in my eye and put knock my contact out. But when I talk about that, it's because Trump expects women to look a certain way. There's a certain poofiness of hair, there's a size of breast, there's a certain contouring of the face, a weight restriction. And he has famously said that women have an expiration date at 35 years of age.
You know, here's the thing I found that was so, as you say that, I agree that he does have a certain look. To the point that Joni Ernst now has blonde hair.
And long hair.
And it's flipped out.
Yeah.
She has long blonde hair flipped out. If you look at Joni Ernst, she's always had it under, it's been dark.
It's always
brown.
Been, because she was in the military. She always had a military haircut. And now it's like all fluffy and pretty. And let's talk about Joni Ernst for a minute.
Even up until... This was very recent change to Joni Ernst's appearance.
She never looked like this before.
And I think it goes along with what you are saying about the look, and I'm wondering how much of that look wasn't knowing it would please him and they'd get more money for their campaign.
I think when women fawn over him, when they achieve this certain look, that it gets his attention, and he considers it to, it strokes his ego. And when I see women doing this, there was a movie, and I know it was redone, but in the 70s called The Stepford Wives, where all these women basically became robots, and they were always perfectly made up, their outfits were perfect and matched, and the house was always immaculate, and dinner was always on the table. This was also shot back when one income would feed a household. That's not like that anymore. So I don't know how you could do Stepford Wives, but all of these women kind of have that Stepford wife vibe.
And Heidi, you are so right, but it's not even just their looks. When they were reading the teleprompter,
it's a syntax.
It was a vapidness to them. You would think that even if they had no experience ever reading a teleprompter before, that they would read the speech a couple of times and kind of internalize it a little to know what it was. But as they gave the speech, they had no empathy, or emotion.
No.
Emphasis! Oh my goodness.
There was a cadence to it that went with every woman, no matter if she was the little nurse from Tennessee that deployed, to Tiffany Trump, to Joni Ernst. It is the same cadence, the same rhythm, with Kimberly Guilfoyle being the exception, because at that point he wanted to show a crazy woman, and she had to spin her head around and have multiple tongues darting out of her mouth. I don't know what the hell. I told you.
Black was also one of those women that was like Guilfoyle. Yes. She was. There was another one that was kind of crazy too. But aside from the women aspect, which, and the immigration aspect and the unbridled white savior complex.
Nobody's done more for black Americans than I have, white savior.
Did you see how many times, as of now, I have seen 12 in 3 nights Lincoln references, whether it was to Lincoln himself or to his boyhood home, and I've seen 6 Reagan. I'm just waiting for Nixon to pop up. And they're going to be like, Nixon!
Oh man, I don't think they would go to the Nixon realm.
I hope so. That would be like the greatest thing ever.
Could they?
I
mean, I don't even think they would go to that because Nixon is so bad. But I do want to.
So the other thing I want to talk about is the so far, aside from, like we said, school choice, which is permeating this entire convention.
Well,
about
Betsy DeVos must need another yacht because they're really pushing school choice, and that's where she makes all her billions. Is by
and
these
that explains
schools.
The swipes on the unions in the beginning. Like school choice is a big here. And the other thing that I've noticed is this religion theme. And they keep claiming religion, but we all know that means Christianity.
Well, and not all Christianity. It is evangelical because they invite all these Roman Catholic people to come up and speak, but then they demonize Roman Catholicism. And you've seen it over and over again. Lou Holtz did it last night, demonizing the not a good Catholic. And it's like, no, Lou Holtz, you washed up old bean. You don't need to be talking about stuff. You talk about staying in your lane. How can he judge what's in the heart of any other Roman Catholic because they don't support Trump? How can he do that? I'm related to a lot of Roman Catholics. I know a lot of Roman Catholics. I know some fallen Roman Catholics, and none of them think exactly alike. They're not automatons, right? So for him to say that unless you have an evangelical ideal as a Roman Catholic, you're not Catholic enough. And that was
in his defense. And I am an ex-Catholic, right? I'm Catholic light.
Well, they would be Episcopalian.
Mother, over in her non-existent grave, it would kill her, and she'd roll over in her grave and come back and beat my ass because she doesn't like it. But the whole point of it is that, and I totally forgot my point because I was on my tangent. It's not. Yes, Catholicism is a part of what they brought up, but overall, everything, montages, speeches, they all have this religion God overtone. But it's not
only Christian God. Only Christian God, not Jewish God, not indigenous people God, not Allah, not any God that isn't. And I want to say mostly the version of Jesus for people who've never read the Bible, because we've talked about this. I've read the Bible cover to cover 3 times in my lifetime, as a work. The first time I had to do it, I was in high school. It was extra credit to read it cover to cover as a collection of books within a book, right? And I did that, and when you read it as a book instead of a religious work, it's like, because not all the books go together. And sometimes there's like a drop thread, and you're like, what the hell happened? The guy fell off his donkey while he was transcribing? I mean, you lose the point. So, and I remember making the timeline so I could try to follow along when I was a junior in high school trying to do this, because that's a heavy piece of work, and I'd already gone through the Episcopal confirmation classes and had, really good working knowledge of what's in the Bible, but I had never read it as in its entirety. And I would put money on the fact that 98% of people who call themselves Christians have never read the Bible cover to cover. I would put money on it.
I'd say that's a pretty good bet.
It's a hard book. I told you, I said the 3 things that were really hard to read, and I read the original ACA proposal. The 3 hardest things I've ever read: the Bible, War and Peace. Tolstoy will screw up your brain. It's fantastic, and the Mueller report. So really difficult,
Heidi,
arduous
when you're
reads.
Talking about, we were mentioning Catholicism, right? And for Lou Holtz, there's a branch within Catholicism that is very much like he is, like
the Mel Gibsons. The Mel Gibsons.
Is a segment of priests who feel 100% that if you don't adhere to the rules, if there is any one part of any of the Catholic tenets that you do not stand 100% behind, then you are not a Catholic. I have sat in a mass and listened to a priest say this more than once, different priests. So there's definitely within the religion itself, you have to know that there is this division of those that are priests that are like that, and then there are priests who are like, look, it's not literal, it's okay if you can't, if there's something that you don't agree with, so in Lou Holtz's defense.
Well, okay, well, no. Okay, let's stick with Lou Holtz here. According to those Catholic tenets, which it's not listed in the Bible anywhere, every time you have sex, you're supposed to be with the intention of procreating, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, he's got 4 children. Do you think he's only had sex 4 times? I'm just asking.
Change from the Catholic doctrine is that once you're married, you don't do anything to prevent procreation.
Right.
Anything that is external.
Right.
That is where that tenet comes from.
Right. So no birth control. So in that case, because he only had 4 children, and let's say he had sex 6 times and it produced 4 children. But I'm betting he had sex more times than that, and I'm betting he did something to prevent pregnancy, him or his wife, because otherwise you'd be one of those ridiculous quiverful people, like those counting on people. How many of those do we need? Really? How many of those do we really need?
There's the rhythm method, which Catholics adhere to. There is technology with basal temperature taking. I mean, trust me, I know this route, and there's a whole lot of weird things that happen.
And I'm betting, I'm betting, Marie, that there was extracurriculars in there. And since the Roman Catholics love to get in people's bedrooms to see what they're doing, I say let's get in there and make sure that they're procreating every time they have sex. But I know why they're going. Lou Holtz went after good Catholics and bad Catholics because he's going after Joe Biden.
Biden, right?
Who only had 3 children.
Here's my bigger takeaway. I'll be really curious to see how tonight shapes up.
Yeah, I gotta listen to Trump
my son
speak.
and I. Those of you who know our family is very open. We talk politics. We talk issues at our table all the time, and our children are from 11 up to 17.
Yeah.
So nothing's off limits. And we will often talk, and my 17-year-old's really exploring and learning. And a couple of months ago, he had mentioned, Mom, do you think there's going to be a race war? Is that what they're trying to do? And I do think there's some aspect of it that they are trying to create division and dissension and create that.
Yes, absolutely.
But after listening last night and seeing how the convention has gone, part of me feels like the next attack is going to be a religious war. They're not going to continue to go after. So remember, it was the Latinx community that was vilified and horrible, and
a lot of them are Roman Catholic.
There hasn't been anything so far. He's trying to reach out to people of color, indigenous, black. It's not effective, but he's still making that effort. But what he isn't, he's attacking the left, Democrats, anyone who disagrees with him as attacking religion. So he couldn't get them fired up with immigrants this time. He couldn't get them fired up with Joe's nasty record, but he can get them fired up with religion. 2A, they're taking my guns, but they're taking religion. Almost every single montage.
They're always talking about taking religion.
70% of the speeches contained attacking religion, protecting religion, protecting your freedom to practice religion.
Is that why we have a Muslim ban? Is that why we have? Because but so whose religion? What religion? Which religion?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And Murray,
you know who that religion is. Like they dog whistle, and we talked about dog whistles. Dog whistle to racists. They dog whistle to misogynists. Yeah. They dog whistle to the anti-LGBTQ. And they do sometimes dog whistle, but it's not really a dog whistle to the evangelical right. This is a dog whistle. This is a whistle to activate all of those to a... And they combined it. God gave you guns to protect yourself from mobs.
God gave you brains to use with reason and skill.
So what I'm saying
and that's
is
something
I really
you're born
think
with.
they are going to exploit religion in the next 80 days to a point where people really believe. They believed the war on Christmas. Of course, people are going to believe that they're coming
Okay.
for your Bible.
Most people with half a brain cell that's working, just half of one brain cell, realize that there's never been a war on Christmas. Never has been, never will be. I will say, as an Episcopalian, that it was inordinately offensive to my denomination, to people like me, because we're very peaceful Jesus freaks. That's where we come down. We come it down hard on the love thy neighbor thing. And when he cleared out the square using tear gas and rubber bullets and drove people away from my denomination, who we use something called a Book of Common Prayer, and then he held an upside down backwards Bible instead of one of our religious books. He drove some of our holy people off of that sacred ground. If this is where we were heading, he has no concept of religion, because I'm telling you, the Protestants and the Methodists and the Presbyterians and the Baptists are more like how my denomination is than like whatever the hell, because he's a Christian that's never read a Bible. He only uses it to defend his positions on certain things.
Hold upside down
and backwards
after he gasses protesters.
And it's not even his Bible. And
right.
I look at that and I think
he got it from his hotel down the street. He sent.
Well, Ivanka carried it.
Go get it.
Ivanka carried it over and handed it to him. He did not carry that over. If you read the story about it, she carried it and handed it to him. Ivanka.
Well, his hand probably would have burned.
Maybe that's why it was upside down and backwards. But there are things that have happened to our church because of that we're still recovering from. And it has nothing to do with the protesters. It has everything to do with the assault on our holy ground and our holy people. And we're just a division, a denomination of Christianity. But it could have just as easily been a Presbyterian church or a Baptist church. It could have been anything that was in that space when he wanted to make a photo up, right? So I wanted to talk, maybe a religious war. I'm not sure how you do that, because you're never going to get the Christians can't agree to begin with. That's why we have so many different denominations, for God's sake. Really, we can't all get on the same page. But I hate how they use Roman Catholicism to beat people over the head and beat people into submission, but then they use it as an attraction to their cause. And I unfriended somebody yesterday on Facebook, somebody I've known for over 30 years. Somebody that I'd already said I'd never sell another horse to, because she runs them into the ground and ruins them, and then she wants $5,000 to get rid of them. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But she posted a picture of a baby, newborn baby, with a thing about how Democrats would say it's okay to abort this baby at this time. That's called murder. There is no such thing as post-birth abortion. Post-birth abortion would be murder.
I know.
Nobody's going to abort a healthy, viable baby in their 9th month of pregnancy, just after birth. Nobody is going to do that. And that horrible. I mean, it's just absolutely horrifying that they would think that and believe that. And this is somebody, like I said, I kind of cut business ties with, because I think she abuses the animals in her care. So I don't do business with her. I won't sell her any more horses, and I will not take any more from her barn. And she's in a big suburban location. But then she's doing this on top of it, and I think, how much harm can you inflict? First you're harming animals, and now you're harming women's health issues. I mean, that's, insinuating that people like me, who support, the operation of a woman's body as being solely her own, and calling us murderers because we support that. Because nobody is going to abort a baby that's viable, healthy in the 9th month, or let it be born and then kill it. It's not happening, people. It blows my freaking mind. So, like I said, I haven't done business with her for 3 or 4 years now. I'm just done with her. Now I'm just done with her. I almost said the F word again. I had to cut that out.
Don't.
So let's go back. Let's roll back and talk about one of my favorite speeches the other night of Joni Ernst. Joni Ernst, as you know, I refer to one of...
She had her pink flannel on
She
in 100
did.
degree.
Yeah. And,
Yeah,
we were all hoping
flannel in 100 degree.
that darling little town of Red Oak, Iowa would roll up its sidewalks and close the gates so she couldn't get in,
He would. Red Oak, Iowa despises Joni Ernst. Straight up, no bullshit. Can't stand her.
She's horrible. She's a horrible... But her talking about... here's where I came down. You and I both went out and we saw the devastation from the floods the year before we were there in 2018, where it flattened the town of Pacific, right? Where it just flattened things, killed a lot of people, and not killed a lot of people, but wiped out entire towns when the levee broke. It was from a bomb cyclone that happened upriver, and when it came down on the western side of Iowa and Nebraska, it just flattened everything in its path. And she talks about how when she was in the National Guard, she saw epic flooding, and she thought something ought to be done about that. And yet, under her care, and under the Trump administration, there's been no federal infrastructure bill. So they've done nothing to prevent this from happening again. And sure enough, in her tenure, down comes that water and wipes out all these towns. But instead of talking about her failure for infrastructure, she talks about the derecho that nobody can control. It's a climate change issue that's a world issue. And I'm thinking, Joni Ernst, you just jumped over the biggest problem that you could have done something about, and that was the epic flooding in 2019 or 2018. So, and
yeah,
she's just
I'm
a disaster.
Just gonna say, overall, Joni Ernst is not one of our favorite people. Get out, vote for Teresa Greenfield. She's amazing.
Yep.
But, Joni Ernst made this part of her speech when you're talking about her. She was talking about how after derecho hit, that she was on the phone with the president, right, and had gotten supplies there, and he was there the next day, which he wasn't. It was his administration. Right. But she's talking about the amazing, fantastic, fast response. And my question was,
it took her...
would it have happened with the same speed with Puerto Rico?
Well, California, it never happened. It still hasn't happened in Puerto Rico.
Right. And that's what I'm saying, is that if you are... that alone reinforced the notion, everything throughout the yes, it sounds like Trump is a great guy. It sounds like Trump has gone out of his way for people. But the thing is, those are only the chosen people, and they're such a tiny amount. If a Democratic state had a derecho that did that much damage, we'd still be asking for help right now.
Listen, a third of the crops in Iowa were damaged. It blew down corn bins. It leveled fields. Trump came out there and made a lot of promises, but if you read up on that, none of that funding is going to happen. None of it. There's no money to send him. So Iowa is going to wait for stuff, and she's saying that he did something. It took her governor, Kim Reynolds, 5 days to call up the National Guard to help. That's how long it took. And as soon as the National Guard were called up, that's when Trump got his ass on Air Force One and came out there. It wasn't beforehand. It was when the National Guard was called. So don't sit there and tell me from your pious little platform that Trump, Reynolds, or Ernst really cares. They only care because it's an election year. Period. There's no love there. There's no organization. There's no money. There's nobody coming. It's going to be all the farmers out there with their chainsaws and tractors cleaning up this mess and knowing that their farm insurance is going to cover it. And I think that was part of the reason for the funding, is that most everything was insured. Crop insurance or farm insurance. So anyway, so I get off on my tangent, but I love Iowa. Love it like a brother, right? But
we just had our wonderful guest that we had on our candidate series. Shauna just popped into our chat, and she's pretty darn spot on with this one. Mike Pence was already there the next day, scheduled to be there for a campaign rally. So it was coincidence that he was there after derecho, and Trump only approved individual help for one of those counties. And Shauna, I'm going to take a real crazy guess and say it had to do with the county that gave him a considerable amount of votes in the last election, or who's representing that area. I'm sure we can find some dirt there. We'll have to talk to you about that. But folks, we have had a great time recapping the insanity. My two biggest takeaways thus far were the unbelievable white savior complex, the attack on Christianity, and the proper behavior of Black, Indigenous people of color, and women, which permeated through everything. That was my overreaching tone, was how we are to behave.
Okay,
so,
Heidi, I just want to say one thing. Melania, whenever you're going to appear in our rose garden that you tore the shit out of, please don't wear a Soviet uniform without the badges on it, because that's exactly, we know you like to communicate to us through your clothes. That was a USSR era women's outfit. That was a suit.
Like I know she made the choice. Yep. Somebody should have.
The shade of green was identical.
That same night we had, or the night before, we had Maximo Olivares talking about Cuba and talking about Castro.
I'm telling you,
maybe it was the same night, and then there she is in a Castro-looking communist,
busting the hell out of the Hatch Act.
It was like Indiana Jones, Hitler, Hail Führer, and then on top of it, bless her heart, her accent made it that much worse optically.
Yeah.
It was just a freaking nightmare.
What is it with her accent? What is it with the accents of all of them?
I can't even tell where her accent is from.
It all of a sudden sounded like Natasha from Rocky and Bullwinkle, and it hasn't sounded like that for quite a while. Now we're back to Natasha from Rocky and Bullwinkle, and then she chooses that outfit from, the former USSR. She walked out, and I'm like, okay, number one, Hatch Act, number two, outfit, honey, and I also noticed she wasn't as squinty. Usually she's like this when she talks with her eyes really tightly closed, but she had her eyes open, and I don't know, maybe she had a little Botox to open them up. I'm not sure. And don't go after me for commenting on her looks. The woman has appeared nude in front of all of us. We get to go there. So, just saying.
All right, folks. Well, tomorrow we're going to be so excited. We're going to be on Ben Jarofsky's show, giving you our full rundown and overall wrap-up of the RNC. And tonight I have to hit the liquor store before it starts, because the Tangerine Toddler will be speaking tonight.
Oh, God. So, I think I might try to get my husband's Valium before he comes on. I don't know how I'm going to make it through this one. I have not listened. Even when we went to the MAGA rally in Cincinnati, I was in there. I stepped out when he was on, because he was just, the race baiting was over the top. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in on our live stream.
Subscribe, share.
Yep.
Tell all your friends about it. Live streams Tuesdays and Thursdays. Next week we're going to be on break. Look for Candidate Series episodes coming out. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, any place you get your favorite podcasts, and on Demcast USA.
Heartland Mamas, MAMAS.com. See you later, everybody. Bye-bye.